Ava Green sat back, securing her seatbelt, and took a deep breath, feeling an overwhelming sense of achievement wash over her. She was in the front cabin, a rare privilege that came with its own quiet prestige. It wasn't every day she got to travel like this, and she knew it was the result of years of hard work. The gentle hum of the airplane's engines filled the air, accompanied by the steady shuffle of passengers boarding. Some chatted casually, while others silently found their places. A flight attendant passed by, offering a forced but polite smile. Before long, another attendant, tall, sharp-eyed, and walking with purpose, came up to Ava, holding a clipboard in hand. "Excuse me," the attendant said, her tone dripping with insincerity. "I believe you're in the wrong seat." Ava raised an eyebrow, but kept her composure. "No, I'm in the correct seat. Here's my boarding pass," she replied, handing it over without hesitation. The attendant's expression shifted, her disbelief palpable. After a moment of silence, she gave a strained smile. "One moment," she muttered, then briskly turned and headed toward the front of the plane. Ava could feel the eyes of nearby passengers on her. She was no stranger to the weight of scrutiny, especially as a black woman in a space where she wasn't often seen. Some passengers glanced over with mild curiosity, while others looked on in discomfort. Ava stared out the window, trying to steady her breathing and refused to let their judgment faze her. Moments later, the attendant returned, now accompanied by a tall, stern-looking man in a sharp uniform. His face was impassive, but there was a tightness in his jaw. "Ma'am," he said with a clipped tone, "I need to verify your ticket once more." Ava sighed and handed it over again. "I've already shown it," she said, nodding toward the attendant, "but here it is again." "We just need to double-check," he responded, his gaze never leaving the ticket. He inspected it before handing it back without a word of apology. Rather than returning to the cockpit, the attendant and the man huddled near the galley, whispering and casting furtive glances back toward Ava. Ava could feel her stomach tighten. She had experienced this before, the quiet disapproval, the expectation that she would conform. She refused to let it rattle her. Several minutes later, the two returned, this time flanked by two security officers. "Ma'am," the man's voice was cold now, "I'm going to need you to leave the plane." The cabin fell silent. Ava's heart skipped a beat. "On what grounds?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. "Disturbing the peace and not following crew instructions," he said, his tone dismissive. "I haven't done anything but sit in my seat," Ava replied, standing slowly. The security officers moved toward her, one placing a hand on her arm. "Please don't make this difficult." Ava's voice rose just enough to be heard by everyone in the cabin. "You're humiliating me for no reason. This is discrimination." Despite her protests, they yanked her out of her seat. Cameras flashed, phones were raised, and gasps rippled through the cabin as she was dragged down the aisle. Ava turned to the passengers, her voice unwavering. "You're all seeing this. Don't stay silent." A young girl, sitting near the front, tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Why are they taking her away, Mommy?" she asked. Her mother didn't answer. The heavy door outside slammed shut behind Ava. Cold air hit her face, and her heart pounded in her chest. She was released onto the tarmac like some criminal, her feet slapping against the hard ground. A man in his 50s, an airline representative, approached. "You're no longer welcome on this flight," he said, handing her a piece of paper. "You'll need to make other arrangements." Ava narrowed her eyes. "Because I stood up for myself?" she asked, her voice hard. "This is blatant discrimination." The man shrugged, unbothered. "You failed to comply with instructions." Ava clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. She pulled out her phone, hit the record button, and turned it toward the camera. "To everyone watching," she began, her voice clear and strong, "I was just kicked off this flight for standing up for myself. This is discrimination, plain and simple. But I won't be silenced." A few passengers gathered, listening intently. Ava quickly researched the airline's policy. Her luggage was still on board. That meant, by law, the flight could not take off until her bags were removed. "I want my bags off that flight," Ava stated, walking toward the gate. The staff member on the other side of the counter hesitated. "That'll take some time," he said, clearly frustrated. "Do it," Ava replied. "This flight doesn't leave until you do." Inside the aircraft, murmurs spread as passengers began questioning the delay. "Why aren't we moving?" someone asked. "What happened to that woman?" A woman near the front stood. "She was taken off for no reason. You all saw it," she said. "Now we're all being punished for it." One man muttered about missing his important meeting, but another voice cut through. "Serves them right," she said. Outside, Ava stood her ground. She refused to back down. Social media exploded with posts under the hashtag Justice for Ava. Footage was shared, celebrities retweeted, activists rallied, and news outlets picked up the story. Ava gave interviews, speaking passionately to reporters. "They told me to stay quiet, but I won't. This is about more than just me." Back at the airline's headquarters, panic set in. Executives scrambled, bombarded with calls. Someone suggested issuing a statement, but the PR team was in full crisis mode. Meanwhile, Ava called Nina Collins, a prominent civil rights attorney. "They removed me for standing up for myself," Ava said. Nina's response was swift and sharp. "We're suing. This ends now." Ava sat in the terminal, her phone buzzing constantly. The airline released a bland statement. "We regret any misunderstanding," but Ava saw it for what it was. They didn't even acknowledge the real issue. The backlash only grew stronger, and soon, protests erupted across the country. The hashtag airline discrimination became a rallying cry. Then came the offer, a private settlement. Ava met with the airline's lawyers, and a corporate lawyer presented the offer. "It's a generous sum," the lawyer said, his tone polished. Ava didn't flinch. "You think money erases humiliation?" she replied, her voice cold. "I'm not interested in hush money." Nina leaned in, her voice firm. "They need to issue a public apology, fire those responsible, and change their policies." Ava rose from her seat, her resolve unshaken. "I don't want your money. I want justice." With that, she walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind a room full of stunned executives. Ava's battle was far from over. It had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, her legal team filed a formal lawsuit against the airline, citing violations of federal anti-discrimination laws, emotional distress, and wrongful removal. The case drew national attention. Celebrities and activists rallied to her cause, and public pressure mounted. Under intense scrutiny, the airline's board initiated an internal audit. Several executives resigned, and the CEO issued a public apology, promising policy changes and improvements. But for Ava, it was not enough. Ava became a powerful voice for justice, launching a nonprofit and pushing for policy change.